Welcome back. I am the Loud Little Ducky. Today we are doing part 3. I found a couple more documents in this Marraccini versus Owens case. We have Owens here with a little dog that she had before she had buttons. This dog does not have a protection order, but this dog is still cute. But a lot of these in this video are going to be declarations. So let's jump in and see what everybody has to say. First up, on March 28, 2018, in the Superior Court of California County of San Francisco, in the Marraccini v. Owens, we have the declaration of the witness Stephanie Marraccini in support of respondent. So this is Michael Marraccini's sister. And so let's see what her version of events is. It says, I, Stephanie Marraccini, declare and state as follows. I am the sister of respondent. I am 37 years old and an employee at some technical recruiter company. I'm a resident of San Francisco and live in the Marina Cal Hollow district. I have known Laura Owens during the same time she was dating my brother from June 2016 until the fall of 2017. During that time, my brother regularly told me about her emotionally turbulent relationship that he was in with Owens. From November 2016, approximately until June 2017, Miss Owens communicated with me via text messages. Miss Owens was upset because she loved my brother and he was not interested in beginning a committed relationship with her. She would constantly complain that he would not post any pics of them on social media and commit to an exclusive relationship with her. Oh no, not the first guy, definitely not the last. I advised Miss Owens in my text message that she should not push my brother and instead should just back off and enjoy the relationship and not cause unnecessary drama. Miss Owens told me about her emotional problems, anxiety and depression, and acknowledged to me that those were causing problems in the relationship. But I thought she had never been depressed or anxious before. She also told me that she wanted to post photos on social media, which my brother did not want her to do. I would tell her that he hates drama and the best way into his heart is to be supportive, loving, and not complain about his commitment level with concurrent emotional outbursts over him not posting pics of them on social media. I witnessed her manic behavior over dinner once when she yelled at him and took an Ambien pill to calm down. She apologized the following day and blamed her behavior on medication and her frustration with Michael not committing to being exclusive. So is this why Owen's mother likes to blame her problems on her medication? Oh, it's just the medication that's making her act this way. Sounds like that's what Owens has told her mother. At no time during the relationship did Miss Owens ever tell me that Michael had been physically abusive to her. When Miss Owens and my brother were in Iceland, she sent me frequent text messages and photos telling me what a wonderful time they were having. There was never any mention of my brother being physically or emotionally abusive to her. In fact, she sent me texts with pictures of them saying they had turned a corner and she was thrilled to be having a wonderful time with him in Iceland. On January 8, 2018, I had dinner with my brother at Ace Wasabi, located at Steiner and Chestnut. We had just left the restaurant and all of a sudden we saw Miss Owens walk towards us. She approached us facing north, so blocking us from continuing south on Steiner. Laura was very upset about Michael dating another girl. She continued to yell and scream obscenities at him, and at no time did either my brother or myself yell at her. Instead, we wanted her to leave us alone and that she needed help. After that encounter, my brother filed a police report with the San Francisco Police Department. In November of 2016, Michael called me distraught at how Laura lied to him about getting an abortion and that he needed someone to come over to Laura's as he needed a witness. I asked my boyfriend, Colin Scanlon, to walk over to listen as Laura had called her father to come to her apartment. Colin heard Laura admit to lying about the abortions. She justified her behaviors by... Oh, Lord, I can't wait to hear what the justification is, because there is no justification. By saying she didn't want to lose Marraccini. Isn't that why she makes up all the pregnancies? This is not an excuse, people. This does not make it okay. Laura's father, Ron Owens, told Michael that he needed to end the relationship. Mr. Owens told Michael that Laura makes up stories in her head and believes them. Which, that's interesting because with some stuff going on in the Eckhart case. And the fact that Owens' father still is enabling his daughter, knowing that she makes up stories in her head all the time, and she lives in this alternate universe, is ridiculous. She needs a come to Jesus meeting, quick. Colin witnessed this meeting and heard this conversation. And Stephanie Marraccini, I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of California, and the above is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, and she signed it. So that is what Marraccini's sister has to say. And it seems to be pretty accurate in my opinion. Now we have a short declaration from Colin Scanlon, which is Marraccini's sister's boyfriend. So it says, I, Colin Scanlon, declare and state as follows. I am the boyfriend of respondent's sister, Stephanie Marraccini. I am 37 years old and employed as a real estate analyst. So many real estate people, my God. I am a resident of San Francisco and live in the Marina District. I had met Laura Owens several times while she was dating Michael Marraccini, including a dinner with her family at the House of Prime Rib. I specifically remember being called by Michael to come to Laura's apartment in December of 2016 for a meeting with Laura and her father to discuss Laura's desire to continue the relationship with Michael. Laura had been claiming that she was pregnant and had been threatening Mike with not having an abortion if he ceased to date her. The ultimatum. I'm not getting an abortion and getting rid of these babies unless you date me. She's still pulling this trick in 2024. And it's never worked for her. So why does she keep thinking it's going to work? Additionally, Laura had been indicating to Mike that she was contemplating unaliving because of the thought of their relationship ending. Well, she's still pulling that trick too. Marraccini wanted me there as a witness. During the meeting, which her father, Owens, steered, Mr. Owens told Marraccini that his daughter had the tendency to exaggerate or flat out make things up. Laura was complaining of depression and unaliving thoughts at the fear of her relationship with Marraccini ending and was very distraught. During the meeting, there was no discussion of Michael ever being physically or psychologically abusive towards Owens. She did not complain at all about Michael's conduct towards her. Laura admitted that she was in fact not pregnant and there was no need for an abortion. She also apologized for threatening to unalive herself. The meeting ended with no final decision in the relationship, just the agreement that Marraccini would not rush a decision and for the two of them to continue to work through things. Mr. Owens was very thankful as he, Marraccini, and myself left the apartment. Mr. Owens advised Marraccini in the elevator on the way out of the building that he appreciated Marraccini agreeing to not end the relationship outright and see how it goes. then advised him to get out in a few weeks when his daughter had the chance to calm down and get a handle on her depression. And then he declares under penalty of perjury in the laws of the state of California, the above is true and correct to the best of his knowledge, and he signed it. Sounds pretty consistent. But wait, there's more. Here is Joan O'Neill, Owens' friend. And I make all these statements herein of my own personal knowledge, except as to those matters stated on information and belief as to those matters. I believe them to be true, and if called as a witness, could and would testify competently thereto. Okay. All right. I have known Laura Owens for over 14 years. We met in 2004 and have been close friends ever since. Are these two still friends? If anybody knows, let me know. Because I can get maybe believing one. But when you have now about 10 years, then that's really hard to continue being their friend, because it's hard to believe that every single person ends up like this. Every person she dates, it ends in this way. I met Mike in or around April 2016 when Laura introduced him to me. After Laura and Mike started dating, I saw less and less of Laura. When I would ask Laura to hang out with me, she'd tell me she needed to ask Mike first. When I did see her, Mike was almost always there and seemed like Laura was not herself. When we would hang out, Mike tried to insert himself into the conversation. He constantly cut Laura off when she was talking, and it seemed like he needed to be in control of the conversation all the time. He wanted to talk about himself and said things that seemed like complete fabrications. For example, he said he was close friends with celebrities like Ashton Kutcher and that his sister had a lot of famous friends too. He claimed to have a number of offers for lucrative and powerful jobs, which never actually seemed to pan out. That was something about the way he told stories that made them seem like lies. So Joan is taking a page out of Owen's book, and this is where the person that wants to confirm the isolation. When Owen said, "Oh, he's trying to isolate me from my friends and family." Didn't get isolated from your family. You didn't get isolated from your friends either, but Joan is here to say, I didn't see her as much, so she was isolated from me, and Laura couldn't really ever come by herself. He always had to be there. And he was a narcissist and very into himself and makes him seem important and is just all about the celebrities, because that's what gets brought up all the time. Sometime in late 2016, Laura confided to me that she was being what she described as emotionally abused by Mike. She explained that Mike had been telling her that she could cut off ties with her family, specifically her mother. Yeah, no. In late 2016 or early 2017, Laura confided in me that Mike would scream at her daily and that she was afraid of him. She said Mike repeatedly told her she was worthless and that he and her family all hated her. She said she felt like Mike wanted her to stop communicating with her mother, which made her feel very conflicted since she and her mother are very close. She's not going to stop talking to her mother. They weren't being separated. In or around January of 2017, Laura told me that Mike had been physically abusing her during sex. She told me that Mike had strangled her and tried to smother her with a pillow during sex to the point that she couldn't breathe. She said Mike would say things to her like, I want to have total control over you. She told me she was scared and I didn't know what to do. I was sad to hear this and afraid for her. I encouraged Laura to confront him and tell him how she felt. In the many years I've known Laura, I had never seen her afraid of anyone. because she's not. And this is hearsay. This is not of Joan's own saying. This is her repeating everything that Laura told her to say, or to get at least one person on her side. In summer of 2017, go back up to number 8. In early 2017, Laura called me very upset on a regular basis, 1 to 4 times a week. During these calls, she cried and told me Mike screamed at her and degraded her. Sometimes she'd tell me that Mike strangled her during sex. In summer of 2017, Laura confided in me that she wanted to stop seeing Mike, but that she was legitimately scared of him retaliating if she did. She told me she thought he was dangerous to her physically and emotional well-being. In the fall of 2017, Laura stopped dating Mike. On January 5th, 2018, Laura and I met for dinner at Mamanoku in the Marina District of San Francisco, which is in our neighborhood. We live a couple of blocks from each other. You also live a couple of blocks from Marraccini's sister and her boyfriend. We were seated at a high table next to the window that faced the street. Shortly after, let's see what little old Joan has left to say. Shortly after receiving our food, Laura stopped our conversation to tell me that Mike was walking down the street. She said that he was with a blonde woman and was walking towards the restaurant. Laura's facial expression changed and she appeared to be scared. When Mike walked by the restaurant, Laura focused her attention on me and tried to avoid making eye contact with him. Mike stopped directly in front of our table outside the restaurant window. He stared into the window at us. I looked up briefly and made eye contact with him before turning back to Laura. We tried to focus on our conversation and avoid looking outside. When I glanced outside a minute or two later, Marraccini was no longer there. Laura was visibly shaken by this experience. She looked so upset and thought she was going to vomit. She told me that she was afraid of Marraccini and felt like he was stalking her. She told me he had been showing up at restaurants he knows she frequents and had even shown up at her house several times unannounced and uninvited after she told him she didn't want to see him. Several times? Because there's only one in her declaration. And I remember that vividly because she said they had sex and I was questioning whether they even made it inside the house or if it was on the front porch at the front door. So there was no other him going to her house unannounced except for that one time. After about 5 minutes had passed, Mike came back and again positioned himself right outside the window by our table, except this time he stood even closer to the window. This time he was alone. I tried to avoid eye contact with him in hopes that he would just go away, but it seemed like he was trying to get my attention. He stared directly at me, which made me feel very uneasy. He lingered outside the window and stared at us for a minute or so. Then he walked away from the window and entered the restaurant. Laura's facial expression changed and she looked so scared. She told me that Marraccini had come inside the restaurant and was standing at the hostess station. She told you this? But you did not? You were with her and you didn't see this? Why didn't you see him at the hostess station, which was directly in front of her? I told her not to look at him and she looked down at the table. For a minute or so, Laura tried to avoid looking up. She seemed nervous and uneasy. Then she told me Marraccini had gone to the back of the restaurant and was still staring at her. It felt very intimidating. Laura seemed really upset and uneasy. She told me that she was fearful and felt unsafe. Neither Laura nor I engaged in a conversation with Marraccini. We also did not make any physical acknowledgement of his presence, which means they did not wave, make eye contact, or nod the head, etc. After about 10 minutes, Marraccini finally left the restaurant. Laura was visibly upset and thought throughout the rest of our meal. I walked her home after dinner to make sure she was safe. On January 7, 2018, Laura called me crying and upset. She told me Mike and his sister were waiting for her outside of Amici's restaurant and yelled at her in the street. She said she was afraid and didn't know what they would do to try to get at her. She asked me to come over, which I did. When I got there, Laura was hysterically crying. I had never seen her so upset before. She was shaking and said she was afraid to be alone. I stayed with her for several hours to help calm her down and make sure she was safe. Signed on March 29th, 2018, Joan O'Neill. What do y'all think of Joan's story? Because to me it sounds like a lot of Laura said, which I don't care what Laura said. I need to know what you saw and heard with your own self. Okay. On March 29th, 2018, this is Karen's declaration. She is the stranger on the plane. So it says, I, Karen, declare as follows. I make all the statements herein on my own personal knowledge, except as to those matters stated on information and belief, and as to those matters I believe them to be true, and if called as a witness, could and would testify competently thereto. I had never met or seen Miss Owens until or around December 30th, 2016. On that day, I was flying on WOW Airlines to Iceland with my fiancé. Miss Owens and a man I now know to be Mr. Marraccini were seated in the row right behind me. Throughout the flight, I overheard Marraccini speaking to Owens in a tone of voice that I would characterize as scary. I can't recall the specifics of what he was saying, but I remember him belittling her. For a long period of time, he insulted and demeaned her, making belittling remarks, one after another. Miss Owens did very little talking. Most of what I heard of their communication was Mr. Marraccini putting her down. The entire time Mr. Marraccini berated Miss Owens, she cried. When this happens, Mr. Marraccini would demand she stop crying and would berate her even more. Even though I cannot remember the specifics of what was said during their conversation, I remember that Mr. Marraccini was emotionally and verbally abusing Miss Owens for a long time. Based on what he was saying to her, I felt that she was in a frightening situation and needed to get out. He was so menacing that I felt her life was at stake if she were to stay with him. Several hours into the flight, I decided to write her a note on a cocktail napkin. In that note, I wrote that I overheard the conversation. I told her that she was being abused and deserved better. I urged her to get help and wrote I was concerned about her safety. Because of the types of things Mr. Marraccini was saying and the way he was talking to her, I was too afraid to include my full name and phone number on the note. So now we do have her admitting that she was scared. Not just Owens saying that she was scared. So the stranger on a plane was scared of Mr. Marraccini. I was afraid that he would come after me if he found the note, so I wrote on a note an old email address of mine that doesn't contain my last name. When Mr. Marraccini got up from his seat and walked towards the bathroom, I slipped the note between the seats to Miss Owens. I did not speak to Miss Owens or Mr. Marraccini at all during the flight. I heard nothing from or about Miss Owens until sometime in or around November of 2017, so about a year later, when her mother, Jan Owens, contacted me about the note I wrote. Since then, I have communicated with Miss Owens' mother a couple of times about the note and what I observed during the flight to Iceland in December of 2016. So we have this passenger on the flight. And maybe Marraccini was not being nice. Like, maybe he just wasn't. Could have been. I am so sorry. Do y'all hear that? That is my little dachshund. She is my little pig. She's snoring very loudly. I'm so sorry. Okay. But we do have a witness. And this is a stranger, supposedly, Um, I'm gonna believe that she was a stranger. I don't know that. I mean, is it possible that Owens like paid somebody or had a friend do this? Maybe, but I'm gonna believe that it actually did happen on the plane, on our way to Iceland. I'm gonna believe that part. Y'all tell me what y'all believe. But there was somebody that caught Marraccini being a jerk to Owens. I mean, all of us think, how could somebody not be a jerk to her? But, you know, this is why you don't do this kind of stuff in public. Like, keep your personal life personal. Like, you don't need to be airing your dirty laundry out in public. Um, you know, and so I think that's why I believe parts of this. Like, I do believe there was an incident in Iceland where Marraccini was pissed off and treating her like crap. I do believe that. That does not mean I believe that she was pregnant, that he abused her, that he AR'd her, that he was stalking her. I I don't I don't necessarily believe that, but I do believe that they were on a long flight. Marraccini ended up losing his job afterwards, so maybe there was some stuff there. He didn't even know about this flight. He had to cancel his own trip to go on this. But so there was a lot going on at this time. Their relationship wasn't great. But we know Owens likes to play victim too. She could have pushed his buttons, I've said. Doesn't mean that what he did was correct in doing it, but this incident, as far as him being a jerk, I believe. Sorry if y'all don't. Now we have a declaration from Mommy Dearest, Jan Owens. I, Jan Owens, declares as follows. I make all the statements herein on my personal knowledge, except as to those matters stated on information and belief, and as to those matters I believe them to be true, and if called as a witness, could and would testify confidently thereto. I am the petitioner's mother. First time I met respondent Marraccini was spring of 2016, 1 or 2 months after he started dating Laura. On that occasion, my husband, Laura's father, Ron Owens, and I had dinner with Laura and Marraccini at the Battery. My first impression of Marraccini was he was polite but calculating. Really? That was your first impression of him? Okay, I don't know that I'm buying that. I recall when I asked Mike about his background, he paused before answering. His answers seemed well crafted, but I felt like they lacked emotion. Maybe he's just trying to make a good impression. One morning in or around late May or early June of 2016, Laura came over to our house with a black eye. When I asked her what happened, she started crying and explained that Mike had hit her in the middle of the night while she was sleeping. Laura told me that she thought Mike was asleep when it happened and said it was probably involuntary. She expressed fear about the idea of sharing a bed with Mike because he had hit her so hard, however deliberate or accidental it may have been. See, Mom's putting in there. It might have been an accident, or it could have been he actually did it and was just pretending to be asleep. Beginning in late spring or early summer of 2016, Mike started joining us for dinner several nights a month. When we'd go out, he wouldn't talk much. He was polite, but seemed detached. Early on, I noticed that he was never very affectionate towards Laura, and he always walked in front of her, which seemed odd to me. Okay. Starting in summer of 2016, Mike's demeanor changed. When we were out with him and Laura, Mike would rarely participate in conversation and would just sit there. Yeah, because he probably didn't want to be there. He acted cold towards us and showed little emotional engagement. Before, he had at least acted politely. In June 2016, Laura shared with me that she and Mike were having problems. She confided to me that Mike would often put her down and that her self-esteem was really being degraded by Mike. Sometime in June of 2016, I found out that Laura was pregnant. Shortly after finding out, Ron and I went to North Beach Restaurant with Mike and Laura. Mike told us in a very calm, cool, collected tone of voice that he thought Laura was the one for him and he really saw them having a future together. He told us that he felt like having a child would be irresponsible given how young that they were and the timing wasn't right. No, the timing wasn't right. And what are you supposed to say to the parents? No? Get this baby out of here? He said that he was going to pay for the abortion and was committed to supporting Laura through the process. It seemed like Mike was driving the decision for both of them. After she had the abortion, Laura seemed profoundly sad, in a way I had never seen before. Every time I saw her after she had been with Mike, she was upset. She cried often and said that she was struggling with the feeling of guilt for having had the abortion, and Mike criticized her for this. One night in late 2016, Laura called us in the middle of the night around 3 a.m. Ron and I were sound asleep. Laura was very upset, crying. She told me that she and Mike had gotten into a fight and he was being horrible to her. She said that Marraccini was in the bathroom and it seemed like she was trying to keep her voice down. I asked her if she wanted to come over. Then Marraccini got on the phone and said to me, to the best of my recollection, "I'm very sorry Owens called you in the middle of the night and disturbed you. I have things under control. I'll calm her down. There's no need for you guys to come over. I'll deal with this." His voice was very cold and unemotional. I was afraid for Laura. Were you? Sometime in or around November 2016, Laura disclosed that she was seeking treatment for depression related to the abortion. She shared with me that Marraccini repeatedly told her she was sick and needed to be medicated. Laura said that he called her crazy and retarded all the time and insisted that she be medicated or he would leave. Okay, he shouldn't call her retarded. Call her crazy? Well, the shoe fits. She does need to be medicated. On December 9th, 2016, Laura called me and sounded very upset. She told me she felt worthless and she didn't feel like there was a reason for her to live anymore. She said she felt guilty for aborting the baby based on the pressure Marraccini, under the pretense that he cared for her and wanted to have a future with her. She said something along of, "This is it. I just can't do it anymore." Then she hung up the phone. I contacted Marraccini and told him that I thought Laura was in a vulnerable situation. I told him I don't know what the status of their relationship was, but asked him to please answer Laura's call if she tried to contact him. Later that day, I found out that Laura went to the hospital, so I went there to be with her. The doctors told us that Laura's suicidal feelings may have been triggered by the new antidepressant she had started taking a few weeks prior. They adjusted her medication and she was released within a couple of hours. Okay, Mom says she was released too, because they think it's the new medicine. Laura and Mike went to Iceland in late December of 2016. On New Year's Eve 2016, Laura called me and Ron. She was hysterical. She told me Mike was treating her horribly and he was being cruel. She said that he was being so terrible that another passenger on the flight had passed her a note telling her to get away from him. At some point during our conversation, Mike took the phone from Laura. He told us that Laura was just upset and said, "I've got this under control." He spoke in the cold, emotionless tone again. I was afraid for Laura and felt like she was in a very bad situation. It wasn't good for her to stay with someone who treated her badly and upset her like that. Later that day or following day, Laura sent me a text message with a picture of the note written by the passenger on the flight to Iceland. After Owens and Marraccini came back from Iceland, Owens confided in me that Marraccini strangled her while they were having sex. She said that it was really scary. I told Owens she needed to end the relationship. She resisted and said that because he promised it wasn't going to happen again, she intended to stay with him and give him a chance to change. She also shared with me that she had started believing the things that Mike was constantly telling her, that she was stupid, she was worthless, and that nobody else was ever going to be with her. So far, he has not been wrong. I don't know about you being stupid or worthless. I think the things you're doing are dumb, but I think you're manipulative and calculated, and that doesn't take a dumb person. Worthless? I don't know what you're worth right now. I'm sure you have some qualities somewhere. In early 2017, Mike lost his job. When this happened, he started coming out to dinners with our family regularly. We also started taking Marraccini's mother, his sister, and his sister's boyfriend out for dinners at Marraccini's suggestion. I started to feel like he was taking advantage of us. Really? To have his family involved in your family? Yeah. Don't introduce two families, because then one of them is going to feel like they're being taken advantage of us. Sometime in or around February of 2017, Owens called me in the morning to tell me she was sick and needed to go to the hospital. She had explained that she had been throwing up constantly through the night. She told me she was going to St. Mary's Hospital to get checked out and asked me to pick her up at the hospital when she was done. When I picked her up, I had noticed that she had little red dots under her skin, on her skin, under the eyebrows, on her eyelids, and below her eyes. She looked very worn out. When I asked her what happened, she said that Marraccini was horrible to her the night before and that she had a bad night. Owens and I are very close and see each other almost daily. Yeah, that's why Marraccini didn't isolate you from your family. While she was with Marraccini, she seemed very sad and depressed. On at least 5 different occasions, I noticed bruises on her arms and legs. I can't say for sure how many times I saw Laura with tiny red dots under her eyes, but it was at least 5 times. I had never seen marks like that on anybody before. In or around spring of 2017, Owens told me that Mike had strangled her again. I told her it needed to stop and she needed to get out of the relationship. She said that Marraccini had apologized to her and promised he wouldn't do it again. She expressed hope that he would change and would treat her like he used to before the abuse started. I had thought the Iceland incident was an isolated event until Laura shared this with me. She also told me that her self-esteem was so worn down by Marraccini's abuse that she believed nobody else would want to be with her. If she's a cray-cray, no. On May 12th of 2017, Laura was taken to the hospital because she had a seizure while on a horse and fell off. I knew this is what the concussion was from. This is where the seizures had started. It wasn't from the strangulation. It was from the horse. But she blamed that on Marraccini. Marraccini's mother and sister were at the horse show to watch Owens and went to the hospital with us. They called Marraccini so he could talk with Laura while she was in the hospital. I was standing next to Laura's hospital bed while she was lying there talking to Marraccini and could hear everything she said to him about what happened. The next time I talked to Marraccini, he told me that he had talked with Laura while she was in the hospital after she fell off the horse. The conversation I witnessed Laura having, and that she was making no sense and was talking crazy. I had heard what Laura said. She seemed completely lucid and there was nothing crazy or nonsensical about what she had said. It seemed like Marraccini was deliberately trying to make Owens look crazy and convince me and everyone else that she was mentally unstable. Well, she is. This was a red flag and made me very uncomfortable and concerned for Owens. Mike did not come to the hospital to see her. In June of 2017, Mike and Owens were still dating. We treated Marraccini, his mother, his sister, and his sister's boyfriend to a dinner at House of Prime Rib to celebrate Marraccini's birthday. After Mike's birthday and through the summer, I had noticed that Owens was spending less time with him. She had expressed to me that she was trying to see less of him in hopes that the relationship would just fizzle and end naturally. On Wednesday in October of 2017, my husband and I went to dinner with Laura at Maybeck's in the Marina. We often had dinner on Wednesdays at Maybeck's. Marraccini walked in with his sister, Stephanie. They sat at a table close to us, and Marraccini chose a seat that faced Owens. He stared at Owens while we ate dinner. I thought it was very strange behavior and could see that it made Owens very uncomfortable. After the incident in Maybeck's, I decided to reach out to the passenger who wrote the note to Laura on the flight to Iceland. Laura and I had talked several times about wanting to thank her for intervening that day, since it was an eye-opening experience for Owens. On November 7, 2017, I sent an email to the address listed on the cocktail napkin Laura was given. I explained that I was trying to locate the woman who took the time to write Owens the note and asked if I had the correct email. The following day, November 8, 2017, I received a response from the woman named Karen. I sent Karen an email that day explaining that Owens was doing much better since she had broken things off with Mike, and thanks for the note. I told her Laura's eyes were really opened to what a bad relationship she was in, and when she received the note from her that day on the flight, sometime on or around November 29th, 2017, Laura and I were having dinner at Mamanuco's in the Marina, which is around the corner from Laura's apartment. Marraccini walked into the restaurant and made a beeline directly for our table. He was accompanied by a woman who he introduced us to as Callie. He said that he had seen our car parked out front. He lingered at the table, and he seemed enjoying making us uncomfortable. Then he sat down a few feet away from us. He put his hand around the woman he was with and stared intently at Laura. It made both of us so uncomfortable that we left. After this, Owens told me she was terrified to be alone. Sometimes when we were together in the neighborhood, she'd ask me to drive her home, even though she only lived a couple blocks away. She told me she was afraid that Marraccini was stalking her and was afraid of what he might do to her. On January 7, 2018, Ron, Owens, and I were having dinner at Amishi's, about 1.5 blocks from Owens' apartment. We were seated at the table next to the window facing the street. As we were leaving the restaurant, I asked Owens if she wanted us to drive her home, given the fear and the recent history of encountering Mike. Since we parked in the opposite direction of Owens' apartment, she said it would be quicker if she just walked home. About 5 minutes later, Owens called. She was hysterically crying and just kept saying, "Mike, Mike, Mike." She was so upset that she could barely get words out. When she finally talked and she told us that Mike and his sister were waiting near the restaurant, standing by a shrub next to a sidewalk, she said that they came at her and screamed at her for having contacted Callie, the woman Mike was with back in November. She told me she tried to get her phone out to call 911, but Mike's sister yelled, "Don't you dare, get your phone." There was pure terror in Owen's voice as she tried to tell us what happened. I have never heard her sound so upset and prayed that they'd never do it again. Owens never once in her declaration said that she called 911. She said she was going to call like her family or her friends, but never once did she say she was calling the police, and that her sister said, "Don't you dare." I don't like it. Just is so, like, I just don't know. I can't believe some of this stuff. It's just Owens saying whatever. And here's the email that is that Karen wrote back. Well, first it has Laura's mom that wrote, "Hi, I'm trying to locate the woman named Karen who was a passenger on the WOW Airlines flight from San Francisco to Iceland last December. She sat near my daughter and took the time to write my daughter a very meaningful note on the plane. Is this the correct email address for her? Regards, Jan Black, Owens." And then Karen wrote back, "You have the right person. My name is Karen and email is blank. How special is it to get your note this morning? I remember your beautiful daughter. How is she?" So that's the email that was exchanged between them. Now, here is a motion in limine and request to strike. So this is what Owens and her attorney think of these declarations. So it says, Petitioner Owens, through counsel, respectfully submits this motion in limine to exclude from evidence at trial these portions of the following pleadings that are inadmissible. Respondent's response to request for domestic violence restraining order filed on January 22nd. Declaration of witness Stephanie Marraccini in support of respondents filed March 28th. Declaration of witness Colin Scanlon in support of respondent filed March 28, 2018. These declarations contain allegations that are inadmissible character evidence, irrelevant, more prejudicial than probative, based on hearsay. Well, your client's witness statements, declarations, they have a lot of hearsay, and lack foundation, or are speculative, not based on personal knowledge. Most of what Jones' testimony declaration stuff says is all speculative and not based on personal knowledge. As set forth below, the inadmissible portions of the declarations are denoted in quotations. Where only a portion of completely quoted text is inadmissible and inadmissible portions is denoted in a strike-through text. Whatever. Petitioner's objection follow in bold type. Statement of fact. On January 9, 2018, petitioner, then a self-represented litigant, filed a request for a domestic restraining order. On January 22, 2018, respondent filed a response to request for a domestic violence restraining order, herein after respondent's response. On March 28, 2018, respondent filed a declaration of witness Stephanie Marraccini in the support of respondent and a declaration of witness Colin Scanlon in support of the respondent. On March 29, 2018, petitioner filed a supplemental declaration, a declaration of Jan Owens in support of Owens' request for a restraining order, a declaration of Karen in support of Owens' request for a restraining order, and a declaration of Joan in support of Laura Owens' request for a restraining order. Where's Ron Owens' request in support? That's what I would like to know. Objections to respondent's response to request for domestic violence restraining order. Petitioner hereby objects to these portions of the respondent's responses set forth below based in any or all said objections. Petitioner respectfully requests that the court exclude from evidence the inadmissible portions of respondent's declarations, including any and all attachments thereto. Number 1. Page 5, item 25, paragraph 1. The allegations she has made are total fabrication from a young woman who has threatened unaliving herself multiple times, has been hospitalized for depression, and been on anxiety and depression meds. The objection to this statement lacks relevance. So let's see what else we've got objections to. It does not have any probative value. It is substantially outweighed by the likelihood that admission will create a substantial danger of undue prejudice. Lacks foundation, as the respondent's qualifications to render the opinion that petitioner was hospitalized for depression and has been on medication for anxiety and depression. This testimony is speculative and lacks personal knowledge, and it is inadmissible character evidence. Number 2, as shown in attachment 1, text message is between Jan Black, petitioner's mother, and myself. Petitioner has suffered from emotional issues and necessitated her placement in an inpatient facility, followed by outpatient treatment and multiple medications. Attachment 2, messages between Ron Owens, petitioner's father, and myself. He also acknowledges petitioner's mental and emotional instability. Mr. Owens, in a text message dated 2016, told me please call Laura and promised her anything she wants to keep her alive, and I promise to help you get out of this as soon as she's safe. Please now. They say that this lacks relevance, lacks foundation, to render the opinion the petitioner suffered from emotional issues that necessitated her placement in an inpatient, outpatient, multiple medications, speculative and lacks personal knowledge, and it's more, any probative value is outweighed by the prejudice. They say it's hearsay. Then we've got additionally the text from petitioner to the sister in December 2016. Petitioner, as person consumed with her love for me and her desire to make our relationship work, lacks relevance. It's prejudiced, it's hearsay, and it's inadmissible character evidence. Number 4, since we dated, petitioner has taken multiple medications to help with anxiety and depression. The text and all of the attachments confirm this. Towards the end of our relationship, petitioner told me she would take her tranquilizers to calm her down. Lacks relevance, speculative, lacks personal knowledge, no foundation, more prejudicial than probative, inadmissible character evidence. Number 5, text between petitioner's mother and respondent. This is all stuff right now that was in the last video, number 2, that you can find in the playlist if you have not seen part 2. Respondent's attachment 1 is inadmissible and should be stricken based on the following objections. Lacks relevance, it's more prejudicial than probative, hearsay, lacks proper authentication. Text between fathers and respondents of the entirety of respondents, inadmissible and should be stricken from the following thing. I'm guessing that he's saying that she's going to say the same things as that other one, but let's see. Okay, so yep, this one lacks relevance, any probative, it's more prejudicial than probative, it's also hearsay and lacks proper authentication. Number 7, attachment 3, text between petitioner and respondent's sister, relevance, more prejudicial than probative, hearsay, and lacks proper authentication. Objections to the declaration of the witness, Stephanie Marraccini. Petitioner hereby objects to these portions of Stephanie Marraccini's declaration set forth below. Based on any and all of said objection, petitioner respectfully requests that the court exclude from evidence the inadmissible portions of Stephanie Marraccini's declaration. Page 2, lines 3 and 4. I advised Ms. Owens in my text message that she should not push my brother and instead should back off and enjoy the relationship. Objections are lacks relevance and hearsay. Number 9, I witnessed her manic behavior over dinner when she yelled at him and took an Ambien pill to calm down. Lacks relevance and is more prejudicial than probative. Lacks foundation, as Stephanie Marraccini's qualifications to render the opinion that petitioner exhibited manic behavior. So basically she's not a doctor. And this testimony is speculative and lacks personal knowledge. Number 10, Laura was upset about Michael dating another girl. this testimony is speculative. Not if Owens told her that's why she was upset. Instead, we told her we wanted her to leave us alone, that she needed help. Objections are lacks relevance and it's hearsay. After that encounter, my brother filed a police report with the San Francisco Police Department. This testimony is speculative and lacks personal knowledge. She could have been there. 13. November 2016, Michael called me, distraught in how Laura lied to him about getting an abortion, and he needed someone to come over to Laura's as he needed a witness. I asked my boyfriend, Colin Scanlon, to walk over and listen. Colin heard that she was lying. She justified her behavior, saying she just didn't want to lose Michael. Laura's father told Marraccini that he needed to end the relationship. Mr. Owens told Michael and Laura that makes up stories in her head and believes them. Carlos witnessed this meeting and heard this conversation. Lacks relevance, is more prejudicial than probative. This testimony is speculative and lacks personal knowledge. Inadmissible character evidence. I don't see how this is inadmissible character evidence. I think this paints a clear picture that matches up to some things. And I'd wonder what everybody would think now, looking back at what her current behaviors are. And I think that this prejudicial stuff does need to come in, because the judge can weigh the prejudicial and probative stuff. The jury, that's a little different. I can see this being used during jury trials, but not necessarily with the judge, because they know how to do this. Okay, this is the notice of hearing for Laura Owens v. Marraccini, filed in the court on April 9th, 2018. It says that the court finds good cause to grant respondent's request for continuance. Witnesses may not appear by phone unless there is a stipulation of the parties. The TRO is reissued and is signed by the judge. And then it's got other case information on there. Nothing on page 3. Page 4, domestic violence restraining order. The other orders requested to continue trial date. Facts to support the order I requested are listed below. The facts I write in support and attached to this request can be no longer than 10 pages unless the court gives permission. And this is signed by Marraccini's attorney. Sorry, this kind of runs together, but it was the only way to fit it on to one page. I, Randy Pollock, Marraccini's lawyer. He is a licensed to practice attorney in all courts in the state. Respondent was originally timely served with petitioners DV 109, 110, 100, 101, and attachments. A court order granting a temporary restraining order was granted in part on January 10, 2018. A hearing was set for January 26, 2018. Number 5, both parties and witnesses for respondents appeared on that date, but the court did not have time to hear the matter. Number 6, because of conflicts with the declarant's schedule on Fridays and the schedules of witnesses, the trial was set for April 13th at 1:30. Number 7, the court specifically ordered that the declarations of witnesses Joan Karen for petitioner and Colin Scanlon and Stephanie Marraccini would be filed on March 29, 2018. These declarations would constitute the witness declarations. On March 29, 2018, declarant received a 33-page declaration signed by the petitioner, which consisted of a 16-page declaration and submitted of 6 exhibits and text messages and photos. In addition to the anticipated declarations of witness O'Neill, which is Joan and Karen, there was an additional declaration by petitioner's mother, Jan Owens. Number 9, the new declaration submitted by petitioner alleges new allegations of abuse that had not been in her original petition. Number 10, declarant called counsel for petitioner and stated that she would need additional time to respond to this new petition, while counsel for petitioner was willing to extend the date for respondent to file supplemental declarations until the week of April 2nd. Declarant advised her that she needed to continue the trial date. Number 11, declarant was prepared to defend the original allegations with the original 2 named witnesses, but at this time, declarant is unable to prepare to defend this new petition and the lengthy declarations by the petitioner's newest witnesses as well as the other 2 witnesses. Declarant has advised counsel for petitioner that she begins a 4-week federal criminal tax evasion trial on May 4, 2018. This trial is proceeding 4 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, what? For declarant. Okay. Has advised counsel for the petitioner that she begins. Okay. So Owens' attorney is doing this other thing. Spending all of her time preparing for cross-examination, government witnesses, direct examinations. Next week, declarant's client's brother, a key witness, is flying in from China, and declarant must prepare questions for her client and a brother. The discovery in this case is tens of thousands of documents. Declarant has filing deadlines for next week that take priority over her other cases. Counsel for petitioner attempted to find a date that this matter could be continued to, however, the parties could not agree on a date. Declarant is available in June, July, and August. 15. Under California Family Code, Section 245, either party may request a continuance of the hearing, which the court shall grant on showing of good cause. Number 16. Declarant needs additional time to respond to petitioner's new petition. Petitioner's new petition. That's just a mouthful. It is impossible for her to do so with her pending federal trial, in which her client is facing over 5 years in federal prison. Declarant owes Mr. Marraccini effective assistance of counsel. To force declarant to defend the new allegations without sufficient time to prepare will result in ineffective assistance of counsel. Number 18, respondent is prepared to agree to the temporary restraining order to remain in effect. If the court is not inclined to grant this continuance, then declarant will move to withdraw and refer respondent to another counsel, which will also presumably need continuance. I declare under penalty of perjury that the above is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, and it was signed on the 5th of April, 2018. Declarant called counsel for petitioner. So maybe it's not Owens' attorney, it's Marraccini's attorney that has to do the tax evasion thing. I don't know who needs to do the tax thing, but somebody does. But since he said that he would withdraw and the respondent would get other counsel, I would assume that that means that Mr. Randy Pollock, Marraccini's attorney, is the one that has to deal with another case. Because I don't think Owens has tax evasion stuff on her record. Okay, here we have by Randy Pollock, notice of the hearing. It was served and faxed, and Pollock signed it under penalty of law. And then here's the request to renew the restraining order, so I guess continue the TRO. And then it describes Marraccini's looks. The order ends on July 10th of 2020. Attached is the declaration. I'm afraid of the person in attached declaration. Signed Owens on July 9th, 2020. And then here is a picture of Barry's boot camp, Bay Area. It It's a screenshot of Michael Marraccini on April 5th, 2019, with a drink from Barry's Boot Camp, the gym around the corner from Owens' home. See, he was there. So that is all I have on this case today. We are going to end with our quote of the day. Understand the difference between helping and enabling. Don't participate in someone else's misbehaviors. That goes to Jan and Ron Owens because they keep enabling their daughter and her misbehaviors. And helping somebody is helping them in their own stuff. Enabling means you're trying to save them from consequences, which people need to be able to face consequences of their actions. Take accountability, own them. So if any more updates and paperwork is found, then I will of course update y'all. Hit that subscribe button for more. We have new attorney of Owens in the Eckhard case. Information about him coming out soon, and then we will be starting Greg Gillespie. Hit that like button also on your way out, and I will see you next time. Bye.